thick of things for this morning's message. Yeah, so I want to start by telling you a story. Most of you know me. I'm sometimes a bit of a loose cannon, a loose head. That's why I had to marry my wife to get stability. But if you get to know people like Norbert, like Karel, Mark, Christine, Werner, did you actually know that Werner is still human? Just want to mention that because yesterday he cycled 90 kilometers, and this morning he said to me, he feels his legs are slightly okay. He's still good. That was like 3-4 months ago when he had an accident. Huh? Praise the Lord for miracles like that he can still cycle. Amen. But thank goodness for stability. When I go to Norbert's house, everything is in a perfect line. The doors can close. If I look at Karel, he's got remote controls for every single thing that locks up, that sets alarms. When you come to me, I have 3 different remotes. I've only got 2 buttons, and that's it. So if you score a remote of me, you'll be able to enter my house. So a few years ago, Marlies and I, we went to Aninka was about a year old, and we set off for Cape Town. And I think we arrived, we set up camp, so we went with our little caravan, and man, we were just enjoying our holiday. So I get a phone call from my neighbor, and he's like, listen, JP, are you coming back home? I haven't seen you in a day or 2. I was like, yeah, no, we'll be back in about 3 weeks. And he said to me, do you know that your back door is open? So we stayed in, and I'm not saying open, I'm saying everything's visible. So I was, we backed up and we left, and I was got to Cape Town, and he phoned me. So we lived in a little woonstel or a apartment block, where the middle of the apartment was, or the middle of the flats was ours. So there was only one level. So you have your door this side, and then there's a little area that's sort of covered off, and then this is the area where the back door is. But it's from the street, or from the parking area, we stayed on a bit of a mountain. So everything was visible. The door was open, and I'm like, oops, that's a bit of a challenge. So just said to him, listen, just pull the door closed, and we'll be back in 3 weeks. We'll be all right. Okay, so that was number 1. A few years, fast forward a year or 2 after that, we moved to a new house. And I get the phone call from the neighbor again. He's like, are you guys around? I was like, nope, we're in Cape Town, or we're somewhere else. He's like, your front door's open. So I've had a few encounters in my life where I've left the doors of my life open in our house. And then, thank goodness, after 3 weeks, we come back and everything is in place and nothing has been stolen. It's only when we came to Swakop that I forgot the ones to put the alarm on. And some guy decided to help himself inside my house through the window. And again, I only realized it a few hours after that morning when I was looking for something, and I realized, but something happened. So the challenge is, and that's what I want to talk about this morning, it's sort of a preparation for Encounter 4, for our Freedom Encounter. Maritza mentioned that Freedom Encounter is a starting process, it's an equipping process, and then we carry on as a lifelong journey of living in the freedom that Christ gives to us. So we come from a very beautiful Encounter 3 that took place, where people's identities were restored. And one of the comments that I felt or heard the weekend or during the week was that somebody said to me, I can't believe that the whole of Swakop wasn't here. It was just such a liberating course to present to people and to equip you guys to take ownership of our identity in Christ, but also the freedom that we have in Christ. So I want to lay a bit of foundation, and I'm going to keep it short this morning, because I'm very passionate about this. I'm very passionate about the freedom encounters. I'm very passionate about freedom in people's lives because I know what it means to me. And to lay the foundation, I've got to keep it short because I've got so many things to say, but I have so little time. And if it's just a matter of, can everybody just get this one thing? That here's the thing, if you leave your door open, there's a trespasser that's going to walk by and he's going to enter in. He's going to enter in. All right, and I want to try and illustrate that through the word this morning. So, if you and I leave our doors in a natural open, somebody warns us to say, hey, listen, you've got to take care. I think if Norbert comes to my house and he says, listen, can we just do a bit of security adjustments in this place? He's going to make a few recommendations, a few pages long. But the thing is, if we take the security of a natural, lock our doors, put alarm systems in, burglar bars, connected to a security company, how much more do we need to take responsibility and action in our spiritual lives? So in the natural, we are okay with making all these adjustments and making sure that, we are fine and secured. But what about our spiritual lives? See, in Ephesians 6, it says that our fight is not against flesh and blood, but it is against powers and principalities, authorities, and against cosmic powers over this present darkness, and against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And I want to help you understand that the spiritual side of things is a reality in our lives. The spiritual influences is a reality. And if we don't take heed to it, if we don't recognize it, if we don't take action against it, we're going to be a children of God that does not flourish. We'll be orphans continuously. And I say this because I've experienced it. I've lived as a captured person, not being able to deal with things, and then going into talking to somebody and getting freedom because of what Christ has done. So it's not about me or the person that's helping you through a counseling session. And I've got to use the word counseling very cautiously this morning because it's not to say we have problems, and counseling is a challenging word. But the thing is, we need to understand our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities unseen. Some of the translations uses this as persons without bodies. And how do we fight these? The invisible enemy comes to steal your joy. He influences you to make you feel like you've not got no purpose. You just want to lay in bed the whole day, or you don't want to see people, you don't want to be in the line of light of people. He destroys marriages. He causes anxiety issues, fear, depression, irrational emotions to constantly spark in our lives. And then we think, oh, but the problem is with me. This is how it should be. This is my lot. This is what's been given to me. I want to say to you that is an absolute lie from the enemy. You and I are destined to live in the freedom of the blood of Christ, through the blood of Christ that He's given to us, because He's overcome all of this. So we need to be serious about this, because we if we don't deal with this, we will be stuck in a spiritual prison for the rest of our lives. And I want to say to you that yes, it's a spiritual prison, but we need to take one thing into action, and I'm going to try and bring it together so that you understand it. So Christ came to save. His work on the cross is finished. And the word says in Romans that if we believe with our hearts and confess with our mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, and we repent from our ways and return and turn to Him, we will be saved. That's Scripture. That's Jesus' promise to us. We will be saved. But He calls us to a deeper place of saying, deal with the things at hand, because I want you to flourish as children in this place. And we are holding back, or we've got these walls and things in our lives that we can't deal with because, hey, we don't know how to, or we ignore them because we think in the spiritual or in the physical, this is how it should be. But I want to say to you, there's so much more. We need to take action against this. And then on top of all this, if you think we need to deal with this now, just on top of all this, all the different seasons that we've gone through in the past few years. Let's think COVID. Let's think the economic inflation and things that's happening. Everyone's is struggling, and a world that's beginning to run around in turmoil, trying to figure things out. If you put that all on top, and you identify the fear, the anxiety, the depression that people are going through, the unworthiness or worthlessness that people feel in their lives, can you see how a generation can be lost if these things aren't addressed? A whole generation. So in what area in your life are you struggling this morning? Or just in general? Have you got an irrational fear against certain things? Is there anxiety in your life? Anxiety about finances? About a job? And these are realities, ne? These are things that are in front of us that we face every single day. Fearing provision, lacking. They feel that in your workplace, in a place where you work or you come to, that, in any case, I'm just here. I'm just useless. There's a hopelessness being stirred because of a spiritual influence. And this is what I want to call this morning, just to make you aware of it. This is what we call a demonic influence in our lives. So there's a demonic realm that's not visible to the naked eye, to the natural eye. But it's a realm that is real. It's a realm that influences us. And it's a realm that's here to try and remove you or take you away from the fullness to which God has called you to. And secondly, they're trying to derail you, that you don't believe in Christ and you can step away from Christianity in a sense. And this is real. So the thing is, if we focus too much on the demonic, we've got a challenge. And if we focus too little on the demonic, we can also have a challenge. So Paul warns us to be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might, that we may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. But often we fix and focus just on the devil, and we forget about the work of the finished work of the cross of Jesus Christ. And when we realize that, and we take that up as identity, the identity of who Christ is in us, then we will understand we are able to overcome these things much easier, because the enemy does not have a hold on us. But he will constantly try and bombard us with things in our life that tries to draw us down, tries to get us away from society, tries to draw us away from the fullness of Christ. So this morning I want to help you understand, identify, and address, maybe address in the next 2 weeks, this week and next week, some of the spiritual influences. And then that's a build-up to Encounter 4. And I want to really encourage you, if you've not signed up yet, we'll make the links available this week. It's already in our newsletter, our weekly. But sign up, because it's life-changing. it's life-changing. The devil doesn't like a person with godly confidence, who lives out his purpose for the kingdom of God and thrive in life because he understands who he is in Christ. Jesus was that person. If you read Luke and Matthew and the Gospels, we read that Jesus grew continuously in wisdom and in stature and in favor in God. Isn't that something that we also should desire? Grow in wisdom in the Lord. Grow in stature because of what He's made available to us. So what if we can grow in that same confidence and then start standing up against influences in areas of our lives that prohibits us from living in the fullness of Christ? And we have that ability through the Spirit and in Christ. I'm going to try and make you understand. So here's the first thing. So the understanding part is that we need to understand that the spiritual realm is a real thing. The demonic influences that we face is a real thing. If you ignore that, if you're ignorant on that, it's going to come against you. And it's not something that we see. It's not like the physicality of this building, but it's in different forms. Division is a scheme from the enemy. Fear, oppression, depression, those are things that hinder us from communicating, living in the fullness of our community. If you have an offense against somebody, you're going to try and avoid that person or that situation. And you're not going to engage in the fullness of building a relationship that's going to draw you back. It's going to keep you away. Why? Because you're offended. Often somebody says something and you're like, and there's this anger, this spark that flares up. That's an influence. That's a spiritual influence that can hinder you in so many ways. So, here's a big question, and please understand my heart in this. I'm going to try and prove it to you in many ways. Can a Christian have a demon? Okay, so there's a few heads that says yes. There's a few heads that's undecided. But when we look at the definition or the description of being demonized, because that's what's used in Scripture, the following comes to mind. There's a word, the Greek translation uses the word, and I'm going to try and pronounce it, daimonizomiai. Okay, so it's called demonized. Okay, so it's basically that can be translated into demonized or has a demon, which implies that there's an influence of a demonic nature on certain areas of a person's life. So sometimes this is translated incorrectly as being possessed. And that's what I want to just lay the foundation with this morning. That we are not possessed, but we are oppressed. And that's the difference. Possessed is when the full will of your being is in the hands of this influence or person, and they can do with you what they want. That's being possessed. But oppressed is I'm constantly throwing seeds at you, seeds of doubt, seeds of uncertainty, to bring confusion into you, to make you believe that what you see is not true, or what you know is not true. It's there to derail you, in a sense, from the truth of Christ. And the enemy does that. He will use half-truths to make you believe a lie. And he's a legalist. So he will come into the picture in our daily lives, in circumstances, situations, and he will throw in seeds of doubt, uncertainty. Did I do the right thing or not? Did Did I say the right thing or not? Oh no, that person is offended with me, and okay, so then the whole thing just pans out. So the misunderstanding comes in of being possessed and being oppressed, and that brings confusion. So let's finish up. You see, the thing is, when I buy a house, I want to make this illustration clear. When I buy a house, I possess the house. Okay? The garden, outbuildings, everything on it plot belongs to me. However, I also possess the termites in the wood, the snails in the garden, and all these pests that we have in the house. So I can go about saying, yes, this house is mine, and I don't deal with the termites and the mice and the snails and everything in there, and it's going to eat the foundations up. And then at one day, everything's going to fall apart, and then I'm going to ask, but why? How? And that's the thing. You see, nowhere in the Word does it say that when you just hear the gospel, all evil spirits vanish. It does say that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Which means they will still be there because they have to confess. So when you come to Christ, when your house is renewed as a Christian, as a born-again believer, you've got to deal with the termites and the snails and a house. Otherwise, it's going to eat you up. How do we do that? You see, these things don't come, often it's a generational thing, and often it's things in our own life that we open doors with. That's why I started with open doors, because this is what open doors is. When we, unfortunately, willfully do things in our life that allows the enemy access. And next week I'm going to talk about the various open doors that we can do. But just as a foundational side this morning is, we need to understand that this is a reality. Number one. Number two is that a trespasser, the enemy is a trespasser, and just like a house that you need to protect, you need to be vigilant against for the spiritual enemy that wants to destroy you. It's his mission in life. See, we need to understand first also who we are. We are a temple of the living God. You can read with me 2 Corinthians 6 verse 16. It says, "For we are a temple of the living God, as God said, and I will make my dwelling place among them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people." If we are a dwelling place for God, it means the enemy is going to try and derail us and defile that place so that we cannot be that for him. But that's what God chose. God chose us to be a dwelling place. So let's look at Matthew 21 verse 12 to 16. And this is the chapter that I want to conclude with this morning. So let's just quickly read it through. "And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold and bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, 'It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it into a den of robbers.' And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priest and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, 'Hosanna to the Son of David,' they were indignant. And they said to him, 'Do you hear what these are saying?' And Jesus said to him, 'Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouth of babies and of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared praise.'" So in all three of the Gospels we see the account of Jesus cleaning out the temple. All right. And the story behind that is that it wasn't wrong to have this marketplace in the temple. The thing is, they were deceiving people and hindering people from worshiping God, because this once a year, the annual temple tax and those things were designed were in such a way they made so that people can come to make sacrifice unto the Lord. So what these merchants were doing is they were cluttering the area where people, and sort of keeping people at a distance, because it was about the money, it was about everything else except for worshiping God. They wanted to make money. They turned it into a marketplace. And that is the challenge. That is the thing that got Jesus angry. Because this is supposed to be a house of prayer. And then all of a sudden, we are hindered from worshiping, living a lifestyle unto God because of a deceitful enemy that tries to derail us and hinder us from worshiping God. So he drove out the robbers and he started. And what did he do immediately after he started? He showed them what it is actually supposed to be. He healed people. The lame came to him. He healed people. They saw what happens and what happened and what was their response. When the temple is cleared of merchants and robbers, it opens up a way for God to be able to do what He called us, or what He destined to do with us and through us. And that is healing and cleansing our, or keeping our body so that we are in a place of praise unto God. That's the response. When He clears out, when He frees us, there's automatic response of praise unto Him. And He cleaned and cleared out the temple and made space for this true reason of the temple to open up. So that people are not hindered from sacrificing and worshiping unto God. So the third point this morning, and running through it, is that the temple cannot have trespassers, for they interfere with the worshiping of God. Number one, we need to understand that the spiritual realm influences, demonic influences, are real. Number two is we are a temple of the living God. And number three is trespassers, merchants, now hindering us from worshiping God cannot be in the temple. So when we read the passages, we see something very clear, and that is no one challenged Jesus when He came into the temple and He overthrew the tables. Now where does it say in the scriptures that all they did was they were indignant, resentful, disgruntled, there's a few other words that we can use on that, against what He did. Why? Because He showed authority. The scribes, the Pharisees, everyone in the temple knew deep in their hearts who Jesus was and what authority He carried and by what authority He came into the house of God. You see, when we allow Jesus that full access in that part of our lives, there's an authority coming in that cleanses out the temple. That every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And they have to go. Whatever is holding us back in the fullness of God, they have to go. You see, we are God's dwelling place, you and I. Isn't that a beautiful picture? Isn't that something we should actually treasure more? Because then we won't leave our spiritual doors open. If we fully understand and come to grips with it in our hearts, we are a temple of the living God. It should spark something in us to keep it free from merchants. And what do I mean by saying merchants? In 2009, a study by the Barna Group conducted a survey on spiritual beliefs in the US. And 1,800 171 people participated. 40% agreed that Satan is only a symbol of evil or don't exist at all. Only a symbol of that. So when you read something like this, when you see what people's beliefs are against it, then we can understand why we are struggling every day with all sorts of things. Where do you stand and what do you believe? What do you think about it? You see, we are ignorant of thinking that we are okay and probably deserve to live like this. You don't deserve it. Otherwise, why did Jesus die for us on the cross? He didn't die for us so that the termites can eat us up. He didn't die for us that the snails can come and devour the flowers of fragrance and incense in our lives. No. Jesus plants all those things in our hearts. He makes the house beautiful. He wants to make it beautiful. We have a responsibility to deal with these things, bring them in the light. So how do we figure out whether it's a demonic influence? And we can do it when there's unnatural. We figure it out when there's unnatural, irrational, or impulsive emotions sparking in our lives. All of a sudden, I've had it a few times before. It's like you sit and you start working on something, and then all of a sudden there's this thought of anger against the person that you haven't thought of it. You haven't thought of this person. All of a sudden, you're just angry at him. Why? There's no real reason for it, but all of a sudden, you're angry. All of a sudden, you feel like, sorry, I don't want to attend church anymore. It's not for me. All of a sudden, you just feel overwhelmed, depressed, full of emotions, heavy, and nothing can lift you up. Anyone felt like that? Had that experience? Yes. It's a daily occurrence. And often we think, no, it's meant to be, this is how we should deal with these things. But it's not. Those are negative influences, spiritual influences, demonic influence that are hindering us in the fullness and to flourish in Christ. I remember the one day I was in Windhoek and I was sitting there and I got a phone call from a mom that was frantic. She was out of it. And I calmed her down and said to her, listen, what's happening? She's like, no, my daughter is next to the side of the road. She wants to commit suicide. I'm like, what? Come on. So I get in touch with the daughter through the phone, and she says to me, JP, you don't understand. Nothing was wrong. I was all good. And then all of a sudden, as I was driving, I see the bridge in front of me, and I wanted to drive off that bridge. This thought came into my mind of driving off that bridge, and I was like, okay. And she said, but that was the first one, and I was like, no, man, let's just ignore it. Carry on to the second bridge, and she does it again. She wants to drive off the bridge. And by the third one, she started pulling on the steering wheel. And when she passed that bridge, she climbed off the road, stopped, and she phoned her mom. And she phoned me. And when she came to me, she came to see me, and we ministered to her, we had a counseling session with her, we realized that there's things that were undealt with in her life, rejection issues, fear issues, anxiety. And these were all weighing in on her. And at that moment, the enemy saw a chance to strike. He planted a seed in her life, a seed of doubt, and all of a sudden, things started spiraling out of control. Today we can testify to a new life in Christ for her because she got saved. She got freed. She got delivered. Jesus dealt with demonic influences all the time. There's a boy that was unclean with an unclean spirit. Disciples couldn't cast it out. And Jesus came and said, get out. In the same, Jesus said that all authority in Mark, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. And when he sent it in Mark 3 or 2, where he sends out the 12 disciples, he says to them, go and preach the word and cast out demons. So Jesus took it serious because he understood from a point of view of getting people into the fullness of their destiny in Christ, that they need to deal with these things. Trespassers are not allowed in our houses. You won't allow that in the natural, so why would you allow it in the spiritual? So we need to understand, we need to deal with this. We need to make sure that we get a grip on this. And that is what our encounter, for instance, is about. It's equipping you guys to walk this process. That when you receive, when it's something that you feel that's unnatural, irrational, or impulsive, you're like, I can deal with it right now. See, often we think it's just one person. And I think when it comes to things like deliverance or spiritual influences, there's a massive name, a bad name being casted out against it and portrayed in the spiritual or in the natural. Because everybody resorts to the thing that looks like or thinks like it's something about exorcism. It's something that is you throw water at a person and it's chaos and it's chaotic. No, it's not. God is a God of order. And where order is, and where God is, the enemy needs to yield to that. So often we think, I'm okay. But we have to bring these things into the light. And this morning is just your brief introduction to Open Doors, and I'm going to talk about it next week in a bit more detail, and share a few stories of things that I've experienced in my life, and I've helped people to discover that set them free. And I think there's a few of us that can testify to that. Even Maritza shared this morning. Her journey started in 2004. Is it finished? No. It's a continuous process. But that's what we are called for. To live in the freedom and the overcoming work of Christ on the cross. So in line of the temple and what Jesus came to do that, I want to just in my own words rewrite what I feel maybe the Lord's saying to some of us here this morning. I'm going to end off with that, and I can ask the band to also come. So if we read that passage again, we can read it in my own words. And Jesus entered the life of a person. So let's call that person Marlies this morning, because I can use my wife as an example. And Jesus entered the life of Marlies, who accepted him as Savior. And he saw all the hopelessness, the rejection, the fear, the intimidation, criticism, guilt, shame, condemnation, unworthiness, and isolation doing business in the Father's dwelling place. He rebuked them all, saying, "Get out of Marlies." And he said to them, "This is my Father's dwelling place, and you have brought enough confusion and frustration to it. You have no place here. Get out." Those who did business were indignant, infuriated, and left the dwelling place and went to the place prepared for them by Christ Jesus. And Marlies began to praise Jesus and received healing and restoration in her life. Doesn't that sound like victory? Doesn't that sound like something you would want in your life? And again, hear my heart this morning. I'm not saying we are possessed. No. We cannot be possessed if we have Christ in our hearts and in our lives. but we can be oppressed. There's influences that are hindering us and stealing from us, stealing our joy in our lives. How do we go? How do we deal with this? We need Jesus. And we need more of Him in our lives. And I believe you guys have a song that we can end up with. So I'm going to ask us to stand. I want to give an opportunity this morning. If you feel your temple, your dwelling place has become a marketplace for the Lord. It's either through generation, or you feel in your heart that you've allowed that marketplace, merchants to come in because of things that's in your life that you know are not right. And you want to make right with Jesus this morning. You want to allow Him to come and clear that temple, cleanse the temple this morning. If you feel in your heart that your marketplace or your temple is defiled, your temple is in a place that's it's not in a good space. You feel you want to start this morning with a journey to allow Christ to come and clean out. It can be anxiety, fear, rejection, hopelessness, unworthiness. There's areas in your life where you feel like when you go to work or when you are at home, you don't know how to deal with these things. You don't know, you just can't shake that. Let's allow Jesus to come in. Let's allow Jesus to come and do business with us this morning. And here's the thing, you don't have to be ashamed. I'll put up my hand and say I struggled with these. I struggled with rejection for 23 years before I was set free from it because of one thing that my dad said to me. But if we bring it into the light, then darkness has got nothing over it, because where the light goes, the darkness flees. And maybe you're feeling this morning, sure, I don't know how to start. I don't know where to start. I want to encourage you, the first place to start is to respond to Jesus. Allow Him to be Lord and Savior of your life. And just allow Him into your life. Allow Him into your heart. Allow Him to come and to overturn the tables of these merchants that are trying to steal from you, that are trying to hinder you from worshiping Him, from living a full life in Him. And if that is something that you feel this morning and you feel that, sure, I want to respond to that. I want to start this journey. Just to take that first step. I want to ask you just to take that step to the front. Just take that step to the front. We need to deal with things in our life. We need to deal with the hurt, the things that are hindering us. Emotions are sparking, one day up, one day down. You're like, I don't know. I believe Jesus wants to do business with you this morning. Maybe there's things that you need to bring into the light for your own sake. Things that you're doing in your life, things that you're busy with in your life, that you know is not in line with God's word. It's time that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. The decision lies with you. If your path and your relationship with Jesus is not in a good place right now, now is the time to make that right. If you've never given your heart to Jesus, You're like, JP, but I hear all these things, but sure, man, I've never really invited Jesus into my life. There's a place where you can do it right now. Romans says if we confess with the heart and believe with the mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, He will save us. Matthew 7 says, hey, depart from me because I do not know you. Jesus wants to know you. He wants to know each one of you personally. He knows you, but He wants you to know Him. And there's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to grow in your relationship with Jesus. You just have to take that first step. So I'm going to give opportunity for that, and bang, we can do another song just to respond. As I said this morning, we're not going to cast out or do anything funny, but we just want Jesus to be in this place. Because where He is, all things are undone. All things not from Him is undone. So let's respond to that. Let's respond to that. Even if you just want to come and lay something in your life, come and lay something down. Bring it into the light.